Welcome back, everyone, to Progressively Incorrect. I am your host, Zach Groshell. I am so excited today to be talking about PE. Look, I was never a PE teacher, but I sure did love PE, and I know that some students also did and others who didn't so much. So I'm very excited to kind of dive into a subject that lots of you have requested. You're sort of tired of me talking about math, and we're going to go in and talk to Ste Robinson, head of PE, an absolute expert in the realm of curriculum and PE. So looking forward to that. But first, a few things from our sponsors. As you know, this podcast is sponsored by John Catt from Hachette Learning, which publishes some of the best books in education, including my book, Just Tell Them, The Power of Explanations and Explicit Teaching. They also publish a lot of other books. I post their catalog to all of these show notes, and I want you to go check those out and consider getting yourself an evidence-informed education book. There's another event that I want to talk about in this portion of the intro, which is something I'm putting on in New York City in July of 2026. It is the Explicit Teaching Institute. It is a 1 week long event in the greatest city in the world, New York City, where we're going to be talking about a lot of the contents of my book and about the general practical and theoretical implications of a methodology that supercharges learning, and that is explicit instruction. Bring some friends, bring your principals. I'd love to see you there. I will put the links to that and registration in the show notes. Steve, how are you doing today?
Hi, Zach. Good to see you. Okay.
I'm very excited to talk to you. I know that we share a mutual friend in Hailey Hughes, which, by the way, very popular episode. She says you are the one to talk to when it comes to PE. Tell me, who are you? Go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience.
Well, cheers, Zach. My name's Ste Robinson. I'm head of PE at a school in the UK, in a place called St Helens, in between Liverpool and Manchester. I've been at the school now 10 years. I've covered quite a few different roles across my 10 years. I've been a head of year for 4 years. I was a head of Key Stage 3. I was an associate assistant principal, all whilst obviously being a PE teacher. And then I've been head of PE for the last 5 years. And obviously, previous to that, I completed a degree in sport and exercise science to obviously then lead me into a career in teaching. I first got in touch with Hailey, actually, when she was visiting our school. I got in touch with her after she observed one of my lessons. She then asked me to be involved in her most recent book, which I was a case study in and was involved in. And then from there, she put me in touch with quite a few fantastic people. Mary Myatt from the DFE, quite a few different people from the Department for Education, and obviously yourself, to get involved in this, to speak about like a knowledge-rich PE curriculum and to be able to share kind of my learnings and my findings across the last 5 years as a head of PE, and what I'm doing now, because I think what I'm doing now is a bit different to what other people do. So yeah, it'd be good to share it.
You mentioned that word, knowledge-rich PE, and I think a lot of my listeners will be now familiar with knowledge-rich as a concept. I think it's slowly sort of permeating, different subjects, different schools, but never have I heard knowledge-rich and PE go together, because typically, my sense is a lot of the knowledge-rich discussion and discussion around cognitive science in general has been really focused on like the quote-unquote core subjects of math and reading in particular. Tell me, what is your vision for that? Like, what specifically does that entail? Like a knowledge-rich PE?
I try and keep things really simple when it comes to PE in schools. My vision for my team and my students at Hope is to create a lifelong participation for my students in physical activity. So, like I said before, I'm not looking for the next Ronaldo or the next Messi in my lessons. I'm looking for, will my students carry on being physically active when they leave school? That for me is the most important thing. And we do that in a variety of different ways. But also as well, when I joined the profession 10 years ago, I was quite passionate about breaking down some barriers when it comes to how PE is seen within schools. previously PE has quite a negative conception of kind of just like PE teachers will walk down to the field, they'll have a bag of footballs over the shoulder, they'll kick two footballs on, and the boys will just play for an hour, or the girls will just play for an hour. And it was my kind of big challenge to break that concept down, because for me, PE is as important as English, maths, and science. Even more so, because without our subject, students aren't going to be able to create a healthy lifestyle. They're not going to have knowledge on how to eat, how to exercise, how to have hobbies in different sports, how to create social skills in different sports. So for me, that lifelong participation is really important. Now, we do that in a variety of ways, but the structure is really important. So having that knowledge-rich curriculum is vital for me to make sure that we are as equal of maths, English, and science. But for me, it comes from a mastery curriculum. So what I mean by that is you quite a few different schools will have a PE curriculum, and it'll be very, very content heavy. If you've got individual sports, for example, like a badminton or a table tennis, across a half term of work, you might have 7 different skills to be able to do. Now, if you've got 7 weeks and a half term and you've got 7 skills to do, the assumption would be that each lesson you do a different skill. And at the end of that lesson, every single child has learned that skill, and then you move on. Now, we all know in reality, if you've got a class of 30 students, at the end of that lesson, not all of them, maybe less than half of them, will have mastered that one skill. So if we move on, we're moving on and we're leaving people behind. So for me, it's about a mastery curriculum, and it's about less is more. So it's about delivering less skills within that scheme of work, but going over them until everyone has mastered them. And it's about mastering the basics. If you go to watch a professional football team play, before the game, they'll do short passing. But these are professional football players, so they can do everything, but they'll do the basics and they'll do short passing. So why are we as PE teachers doing really complex skills and moving the students on too quickly and leaving some behind? So for me, it's about you only move the students on when all of them have completed that skill. Now, that might mean you almost have 3 lessons in one. You've got a higher group that are smashing it, that are doing really well, that are really challenged. You've got a middle group that are focusing on that skill, and you've got a lower group that are really supported by the teacher or by a leader from the highest ability coming down to support them. But that's okay, because by the time you move on, and it might take you 2 lessons to do that, but I'd much rather my staff take 2 lessons to complete one skill than just move on and leave people behind. So for me, it's about knowledge rich, but it's also about mastery, because I think people can forget at times it's not about how much content you can deliver. It's how much content we can take in and actually do. So, for example, you should, if you go into a year 11 badminton lesson, that would imply that they've done badminton for the last 5 years. They've done it in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11. So why would I walk into a year 11 badminton lesson and see people that can't serve? Well, they can't serve because we've moved on too fast in year 7, 8, and 9. So what we should have done when they were in year 7, when they didn't know how to serve, is stay on the serve. And if they don't know how to serve, we stay on it until they all understand it. So when they get to year 11, they've mastered those basics, so they can all serve, they can all rally, they can all overhead clear, they can all drop shot. And that's the same for all different sports, not just badminton, table tennis, gymnastics, rugby, football. But yeah, that mastery for me is really important, especially in PE. Master the basics.
Well, it's so interesting. It's like you're applying what we know about mastery, learning principles, instructional design, and the science of learning to a subject that traditionally has kind of been like kind of a filler type of subject for a lot of schools.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about anything from American movies and schools, I mean, of course, we've got the locker scenes and we've got the kids, like being in the classrooms, but we always see the kids that are like underneath the bleachers that are supposed to be at PE, they're having a conversation. Yeah. You see the kids who are like they're in uniform for that, in their PE kit, but they're just not really learning anything. They're just sort of going through the motions. What would you say to someone who says, well, that is the role of PE? They work too hard anyway in the rest of school. Like, why would we use that to kind of just have kids kind of enjoy their lives? And it doesn't really matter if they master anything. It's okay to just kind of be exposed to sports or whatever.
That's quite an easy thing to sort. Again, I go back to the vision every day and everything I do. And if I was to make a decision based on changing the curriculum, or a decision based on changing what we're teaching, I come back to that vision of lifelong participation. So for me, if they're hiding under the stands or they're hiding in the change rooms and don't want to leave, that for me, I'm failing those students. And I can't blame the students. For me, if you're going to, I heard a saying a few years ago, if you're going to point the finger, you've got to point the finger on yourself first. So if I've got students hiding in the changing rooms, or students hiding under the stands or the bleachers, I've got to think my curriculum's not right. I've got to do something in my curriculum to change that. And for me, when I first took over as head of PE, we had a bit of that. We had mixed ability classes. So you've got your best ability students playing against your students that really don't like PE. Now, nobody wins there. Your highest ability aren't challenged, and they're getting turned off from PE. And your lowest ability that don't enjoy it anyway are the ones that are bringing notes in because they don't want to do PE, or they're injured, or they're missing the lessons, and they don't feel supported either. So I had a look at it and thought, right, this isn't a student problem. This is a me problem. I need to sort this out. So, and sorted it straight away by setting the students. So for me, PE setting is really important. We have at Hope, we have 5 groups on at one time: 2 boys classes, 2 girls classes, and a nurture class. The 2 girls classes are separated into a upper and lower. The 2 boys classes are separated into an upper and lower. And then you've got your nurture group there for your high needs SEND and your students that previously might have been disengaged with PE. So just by making that one change and splitting the groups, I've now got the highest ability all playing against each other. So there's students that play for sports teams. They're really high ability and they feel a constant challenge because it's like a competitive fixture every lesson. They're buzzing to come down to PE. It's a competitive fixture that they really are challenged to the highest level. You've then got that middle group of each girls and boys set that are, again, all with a similar ability. So you've got students that won't play for teams, but they're all of a similar ability. And because they're all of a similar ability, they all can feel success as well. Because success shouldn't be just saved for your highest ability. You shouldn't just feel success if you can score a goal in football from 30 yards. You should feel success if you're stepping onto that pitch with a smile on your face and you're doing your best. But you can only do that if you've setted the students. So in that middle group there, you've got students, that might not play for a team, but because they're all together, they can be challenged with each other and they can feel a level of success. And then you've got the nurture group there as well. The nurture group, obviously, at high needs SEND, but also previously disengaged. And they're their own little group as well. So they'll follow a curriculum with us, which starts, I mean, we're very lucky at Hope. We've got incredible facilities. One of them is a fitness suite. So our nurture group will start in the gym and they'll be doing a health and fitness curriculum to be able to learn how to use pieces of equipment in a gym and how to create a healthy lifestyle and how to make healthy choices. Again, so when they leave us after year 11, they've got that knowledge, but because they're all together in that small group, they really do feel success. But again, it's about challenging everyone. So for me, again, in that highest ability group, if we're thinking about teaching those students, if you've got a child that plays sport at an academy or at a scholarship, there's not much I can teach them. Like they're playing sport 3, 4, 5 times a week. And even at 13, 14, 15-year-old, they're at the highest level. The potential they're going to make it as a professional athlete. So I've got to think now, how can I challenge those students? Now, you've got to challenge those students away from the normal performance. So those students need to lead. Those students need to lead others to create that sense of coaching and that sense of leadership So what I'll do for them and what our staff will do for them is the week before, you'd tell 3 of those students, right, next week, you are going to lead the lesson. You're going to lead 15 students on a shooting drill or a passing drill or a defending drill. And they will go away and plan that lesson. And the following week, they would plan 2 drills for that lesson and a competitive and a conditioning game. And that challenges them that way. So rather than, like I said, there's not much I can teach them if they're going to be a professional athlete with 14, 15, 16 years old, but I will challenge them like that. And that really does get them thinking. And it really does get them challenged. But also as well, that's not just saved for your highest ability of all time. Your students in your middle group can still do that as well, because they'll still have a great level of knowledge and they can still lead those students in their group. So yeah, that's how we challenge those students. And that's how at Hope, it doesn't matter what group you are in. You come down to PE with a smile on your face and they all enjoy the lesson. It's removing those barriers.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of this before, and that's why you're here. It's like you've thought about all these angles. And isn't it true that one of the reasons why PE can feel such a chore for so many kids is that they're surrounded by very, very good athletes, and they're surrounded by kids who are sort of leading the whole experience because it's not that the PE teacher has taught them anything new. It's they've come with so much prior coaching from all their different sports that they're sort of leading the experience. So the rest of the kids, what do? They take that opportunity to, to save face, it's embarrassing to climb the rope or to do the pull up or to do run a mile or whatever it is in front of other folks who are basically lapping you. And so in this structure, you can meet students' needs. You also don't create this overly competitive atmosphere for students who that's a kind of a turnoff when it comes to PE. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And it seems fairly obvious, like PE can be very, very anxious and worrying for certain students. Like you can very, very easily be turned off it. I've spoke to so many people over the years and they will always tell me, Steve, I used to hate PE in school. I never liked it. I was outside in the cold, shorts and t-shirts, and I absolutely hated it. And I can imagine they hated it because they didn't feel success. Like in any lesson that you walk into, you enjoy it when you feel success. You enjoy it when you feel like you're doing well in whatever that might be. So you've got to meet the students where they are and their ability. So the setting really does meet that to ensure that all the students, like I said, no matter what their starting point is, they can actually meet them there. But we've got to also think a lot of our students in the demographic that our school is in have a lot of barriers to participation. So the most important thing for me is removing those barriers. So, for example, when they come down to PE, we've got 1,300 students in our school. Some students every lesson are going to forget their PE kit. And I can imagine when you were in school, certainly when I was in school, if you forget your PE kit, you're wearing a PE kit and it was probably in a bin in the back of a cupboard with a skull and crossbones on it. And it was probably absolutely heaming. And you can imagine no one wants to wear that. And that's a barrier to the lesson straight away. They're already disengaged with PE. They've forgot the PE kit and they've got to go and wear something that's 2 sizes too small and go and play rugby. So, but also as well, we understand that students have got barriers. Like, for example, they might be between parents. One day they might be living at mum's and their PE kit's at dad's. Or for example, one parent might be ill and they might have been looking after them all night. The last thing that they can think of if they've been in hospital all night with their parent is remembering their PE kit in the morning. We should be happy that they're in school in the first place, as opposed to giving them a rollicking for forgetting the PE kit. So what we did was I recognised, and my team recognised, that was going to be a barrier for us because, again, lifelong participation. I want students to really enjoy PE and us to meet them there. So rather than having that bin at the bottom of the changing rooms, I created a really nice room. It's an extension of a cupboard, but it's a big room now full of spare PE kit. It's in nice organized containers, in nice organized drawers. It's sized, small, medium, and large. T-shirts, polo shirts, shorts, tracksuit bottoms. There's a washing machine in there. There's a washing basket in there. It's fresh and it's clean, and it's like a closed stock room. Now, what we also did is also realize, because the students are between houses, it's not their fault sometimes they forgot their PE kit. In the past, we've punished students for forgetting the kit. So we've said, right, if you forget your PE kit, we'll take your name down and you'll get a detention. But if you're between houses, or again, you've been up all night with a parent who's been in hospital, or you're looking after a grandparent, we're punishing you and it's not your fault. So already we need to support the students here, and we need to, again, make them feel like we love them and make them feel like we really care for them, and make them feel like we really want them in our subject and remove the barriers. So we took away the punishment for forgetting a PE kit. And overnight, that one choice just changed the whole demographic within PE. And we took away the punishment, and we just said, if you forget your PE kit, come to us, we'll give you a fresh PE kit. You'll swap your tie, or you'll swap something of yours, so we get it back at the end like an exchange. Go and enjoy your lesson. And we've got a washing machine in there. It's fresh, it's clean, everything's organised in drawers. And the only time we would punish is if you refuse to wear that kit. So if you've got a child that says, I'm not wearing it, that's where the punishment comes in. And because we've met them halfway there, in a school of 1,300 students, 99.9% of all our students all are doing PE with the right PE kit on, and they look amazing. If you come down to PE, they look amazing. And because they look amazing, they feel good. They feel like they're part of a team. They're part of Team Hope. They're part of Team PE. And they feel brilliant. Now, on top of that, again, removing barriers, like I said before, we're blessed with some fantastic facilities at Hope. 2 years ago, we got a brand new AstroTurf pitch, which has been amazing in the winter. Because you can imagine, in the winter, the heavy rain and heavy snow and heavy ice, the grass pitches are frozen. So with our AstroTurf pitch, that was amazing. However, the builders of the AstroTurf pitch said we can only allow students on there if they've got football boots or AstroTurf trainers. Now, that was a barrier straight away, because the vast majority of our students don't have those or can't afford them. So I can't say to our students, we've got an amazing 3G pitch there. However, you can't use it if you can't buy the right footwear, because that's just elitist straight away. And you've got students that can afford will go on it, and the students that can't are just going to be on a tennis court playing football. So what I went away and did was, I got £4,000 from the pupil premium budget of school, and we went to a shop called Sports Direct, and we ordered seven or eight pairs of shoes per size, from size 2 all the way to size 13, football boots and AstroTurf trainers. Spent that £4,000 on all those, and then the other half of that room where the kit is it's like a shoe shop store cupboard. They're all organised in size order, and it's like a bowling. You swap your shoes for a pair of football boots. And because of that, again, we've removed the barriers. So if the students have not got the right shoes because they can't afford them, they come to us, we tell them what size they are, we swap their shoes for a pair of our football boots to go and enjoy the lesson. And it means that all the students then can go outside, they can play football, they can play rugby, and at the end, they just come and swap them back. So it's about removing the barriers there. So if they can't afford, we support them with that. If they're disengaged from PE or they forget their kit, we support them with that. So yeah, it's about removing the barriers, but it all goes back to that vision again. How do I make sure that when they leave us when they're 16, that they still enjoy PE and sport?
That is so interesting. And honestly, there was a moment I got a little bit emotional thinking about that kind of vision. It was actually, there's this weird thing that happens with PE more than anything else. Like, I think classroom teachers will listen to this and go, well, the equivalent is a pencil, and I want them to remember their pencil. But it's like with PE, there's this added layer of like, I have to experience this this kind of shaming, I guess, for lack of a better word, where I have to sit in the corner while everyone looks
Yeah.
at me because I'm sitting
Yeah.
here and I'm already like visibly different than everyone because I'm wearing my regular, clothes. And teacher doesn't win because the student doesn't get to participate that day and learn. The student doesn't get to become more physically active and learn about the sport and all that. And often enough, as someone who went into the leadership side of stuff, the reason why they're in the hallways, the reason why they're skipping out on class, and is because of this built-in reason, which is I don't want to have to face punishment. I don't want to have to face the PE teacher and face the shame of being in front of all my friends. So I'm just kind of I'm underneath the the bleachers again. I'm in the hallways. I'm upstairs. I'm not where I'm supposed to be, or I find
Yeah.
ways to get out of it. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you're trying to design and have succeeded in designing a system that allows kids to be able to overcome some of those barriers. So I think that's awesome. I do want to talk a little bit about instruction for a moment because PE can go one way in which the entire time the kids are essentially like playing independently, they're just left to their own to play basketball or whatever it is. Or as you mentioned, it could be sort of mastery based and skills based. What how do you teach a skill explicitly? I'm very curious. Like, what does it look like to be like to see a very high performing PE teacher in action, like teaching something so that kids can learn it?
For me, the way I've set up the assessment criteria with our school focuses on three strands. Because again, you've got to think about the students in your lesson that aren't elite, the students in your lesson that aren't going to be able to perform those skills straight away. So I'm not a coach. Like if I was a coach, for example, of a specific team, I know all my students are at high level. But if I'm teaching my nurture group of high special needs or disengaged students, I've got to really think about that. And that is as important in a lesson as if I'm teaching my highest ability students that all play for teams. So I've got to think about that in three strands. And it's physical, it's mental, it's social. Now, that's a bit wordy for me. And I've created an assessment criteria called head, hands, heart. So the way students are taught with us at Hope, and this isn't my idea. This is something that I kind of scavenged from other schools across the country. But you're taught in your head strand, that is knowledge and understanding. So do you understand how to complete the skill? And that comes through literacy. And that might seem quite strange to think about, like, where the hell did literacy and reading come to a PE lesson? They're quite far apart then. We're not, and that's not, the students aren't sitting down reading blocks of text. What I mean by that is breaking down key terminology for the students to understand the wording of PE. So in PE, we've got a language of PE. And if we just assume that all our students know what we're talking about, that's a barrier straight away, because we know what we're talking about. The highest ability might know what they're talking about. But again, if you're teaching that middle to lower group, or if you're teaching that nurture group, they do not know. So you've got to break down that tier 3 terminology for students to understand the language of PE. So for example, if you were teaching a basketball lesson and you were teaching a layup, for example, you can break down the etymology of that word layup, and you break down those two words, and you'd speak about those two words in isolation, and you'd break that down first. Or if you're teaching badminton and an overhead clear, you'd break down the fact it's overhead. So it's a shot that you always play over your head, and you are clearing it because you are trying to clear it to the back of the court over your opponent. Now, just by breaking down the etymology of those two words, my students now understand what they need to do before they go and do it. And again, it's just that reinforcement for the students so they're aware of what's going on. So then when I demonstrate it in a minute, they've got a better understanding. Whereas if I just say overhead clear straight away, students maybe with a low reading age, students with a low cognitive age, students with disabilities or a SEND need won't understand that. So for me, it doesn't start with me doing an expert demonstration. It starts with me breaking down the wording of the skill to help the students understand. So that's the head criteria. The hands criteria, that's your performance. So that is, can you perform the skill? Can you perform the skill in practice with a partner or in a small group? And then can you perform the skill in a game? Now, that performance there obviously is student dependent, but again, because the students are setted, they're with their own ability, they all have the ability to be able to achieve that hands criteria because they're all of a similar ability. If you've got students that are completely mixed, again, that's a barrier straight away. And then the final one, the social one, or I call it heart, that's linked to a pixel strategy that is a organization in the UK. It was called LORIC. So it was an acronym for Leadership, Organization, Resilience, Initiative, and Communication. And they are life skills that I thought we could really use them in PE. So the heart strand of assessment and how we teach is linked to those LORIC skills. So every lesson on the whiteboard in the space that you're teaching will be the lesson objectives that will already be written on there for you. The heart strand will link to that LORIC. So it might say, for example, show leadership skills by teaching a skill to a small group. So you'll have students in that lesson working in a small group, teaching each other how to do that skill and taking it in turns to teach each other. Or it might be initiative. So use initiative to be able to create a tactic to be able to beat an opponent in basketball, or create a set play in rugby to be able to get round an opponent and try and beat them. So for me, teaching the skill is a lot more than just kind of deliver it and off you go. It's about those three strands to make sure that we've covered all bases and to make sure that even your lowest learners can still understand it.
It sounds excellent. I'm curious about a practical consideration here as PE teachers listen in on this. Like, how do you create like a written curriculum for this? Like, what are your teachers actually using? Like, it's such a risk for this all to be in kind of different individual teachers' heads, Practically, how do you map this and how do you disseminate this so that this can actually work like from grade level to grade level and year after year? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, bro. So each year group will have we have what's called a learning journey. So year 7 will have a learning journey that'll take them from the start of the academic year in September to the end of the academic year in July. And they'll complete sports each half term, obviously that are mapped against the national curriculum, from rugby, football, badminton, all the way to the summer of athletics, gymnastics, dance, orienteering, and across the year they'll experience all those sports. Now, how is it mapped to the curriculum? Again, when I first moved to our school, we were just flooded with documents. There's just so many documents in a shared area that no one can find.
Yeah,
they're all saved as ridiculous names. Copy 1, copy 1, 2, 3. And it's like no one knows what they're looking for. And in reality, if you're teaching 5 lessons a day, you've got a duty at lunchtime, you've got a club after school, you're obviously very busy. No one's got time to look through all these documents to find out what they're teaching. And at the same time as well, I've got to give my staff a level of autonomy as well. So what I do is, again, I take the barrier away. I created I call it a simplified scheme of work. That's kind of my term. So per sport, I'll give staff a structure of lessons to follow. So it might be a 5-skill block. So for example, badminton, lesson 1 might be rallying. Lesson 2 might be serving. Lesson 3 might be overhead clear. Lesson 4 might be a drop shot. Now, that will then get progressively more challenging each year from year 7, year 8, year 9. And I'll put that simplified scheme of work in a really big poster on the PE office wall. So staff who are in that office day in, day out can see it and know exactly, right, it's lesson 2 of year 8. I know exactly what I'm teaching. Now, when it comes to delivering the skill, I'll give my staff level autonomy there of how they can deliver that skill. So as long as the lesson is a structure, the structure will be the warm up. Now, the warm up will recap the previous lesson. So rather than just getting a warm up, doing a lap of the pitch, okay, because that's no use to anyone, the warm up will be a recap of the previous lesson where you will do some skills just to recap the last lesson. And that'll help reinforce the skill from previous, but it'll also help if a student missed the last lesson, they get a taste of what went on so they can be skilled up straight away. You'll have drill 1, you'll have drill 2, which will be progressed, and then you'll go into a conditioned game. So rather than just off you go and play, the game is conditioned based on the skill you want to achieve. So for example, if you were doing a dribbling lesson in football, you'd have your warm up that is linked to the previous lesson. You'd have drill 1 that might be dribbling in lines, looking at keeping the ball close to your feet, keeping your head up, using little skills. Drill 2 might be competitive. So you might have some 1v1 dribbling, attacker against defender. You might do some 2v1s to be able to work together and dribble. And then in your game at the end that's conditioned, you want to focus on dribbling. Now, the minute you put goals into a football match, the students forget about the lesson and they just go, I want to score. So what you need to do there is condition the game to look at the skill, because the skill is more important than you scoring goals. You learning the skill is more important than just scoring. So in your match there, you might channel the outside of the pitch. So you might just put cones down the outside of it and create 2 channels. So what that will mean is if a student dribbles into the channel, they then can't be tackled and they can then just dribble down the width of the pitch, focus on that dribble, and then get across into the box to try and score. And that then focuses on dribbling out wide, because as a football player, obviously soccer in the US, you want to be able to dribble out wide because that's where the space is. So it looks at spatial awareness and dribbling wide. But again, I'll go back to obviously what I said earlier. That's the structure of the lesson. But like I said, I will give staff the autonomy to deliver the skill in a way they see fit, because I might deliver passing in one way. My other teacher might deliver it another way. That's not saying they're wrong. It's not saying I'm right. We get to the same place. But again, if I'm just being really, really directive of what I want all of the time, that takes the love out of teaching. They're delivering just what I think is right. And again, we didn't go to university for years to just be robots. We went to university for years and do a career in teaching to see the students progress in our lessons. So I'll give staff the autonomy to be able to do that. But again, I go back to what I said at the start. It's about mastery. So I say to my team, there's your simplified scheme of work. There's your 5 skills that I want you to complete across your half term. But if on lesson 1, they've all not got it, you don't move on. On lesson 2, you'll stay on lesson 1 until they've all understood it. And then when they're all ready, then we can move on. I do not need everyone to get through all 5 lessons. I need everyone to master the basics, like I said earlier. And that's the most important thing for me. And for me, that mastery of the basics, like I said, is equally as important as delivering that knowledge-rich curriculum.
I love that example you give of the of how you sort of engineer the practice of the skill, like, which is like, it's a complex environment when you play a sport. And what you just mentioned before about the cones is what I'm thinking of. Typically, you practice all this stuff in isolation and you do drills and things. And then it's like, all right, guys, let's go apply it. But realistically, it doesn't get applied by everyone on the pitch. It only, because it doesn't come up, right? Like, it's like that one skill, it's just too messy to see that and get a lot of repetition. So you sort of like backwards engineer the sort of the final task, so it's still fun, it's still a sport, but there are things that direct the student's attention towards applying the skill. I think that's really genius. I wanted to kind of end on one note, which is, it's been the theme a little bit of what you've talked about, which is around culture. we obviously are removing barriers for students. We're also providing them with groupings that are more amenable to their skill level, which is important. It's mastery based, so it really gets kids thinking about learning rather than just showing up and going through the motions. But PE still is a subject that has a really negative connotation for people, kind of like a bro-like type of approach where really it's really led by by folks that enjoyed it, and so there's a lot of embarrassment there, I feel like. How do you kind of overcome maybe that over competitive nature of it that kind of comes with the territory and sort of get all kids to feel like they belong in PE?
Yeah, bro, I 100% agree. But for me, it's about everyone needs to feel success. Everyone needs to feel that when they come down to PE and they come down to our subject, that we've removed the barriers, they can come down and just love playing sport. Like I said right at the start, we're not looking for the best athletes or the best players. We celebrate effort over outcome. That's far more important for me. As long as the students are trying and they're working hard, that's far more important than, like I said before, scoring a 3-pointer from the middle of the court or scoring a 30-yard shot in football. So, but to be able to do that, you've got to remove the barriers, and you've got to make sure that, again, the skills aren't too difficult. So if we just go back to that mastery curriculum before, like I said before, for our staff, even if they're in year 10 and they've been with us for 4 years, if I would say to those year 10s that might struggle in a certain sport, right, you've got to do a curriculum now, which is 4 years developed, which is for a student that's done the sport for 4 years. That's a barrier straight up because they can't do it. If, for example, the lesson was table tennis and a year 10 scheme would imply that you are looking at backhand smash or you're looking at backhand top spin. Now, if you do table tennis for 4 years, you'll be able to do a backhand top spin. If you do table tennis every week, you might be able to do that. But obviously, we're delivering a sport for maybe 6 weeks at a time per year. So if I ask my staff to deliver that year 10 curriculum to students that aren't ready, they're then zoned out straight away. And then again, you've got maybe 2 or 3, those bros that you said earlier, that might be able to do it. And the other 27 just can't. So it's important for us to say, you're absolutely fine to deliver a year 7 or a year 8 skill curriculum to those students in year 10 that won't be able to do it. And that's different to any other subjects. If you were an English or a maths teacher, they wouldn't be able to do that because you've got the repetition there. But in PE, again, you've got students that are disengaged or students that struggle with coordination and just simple racket sports. So you've got to remove those barriers and really simplify the curriculum for those students so they can feel success.
Makes total sense to me. And it makes sense that you think about everything you do from that lens of obtaining a high success rate. There's a lot of mystery, I guess, in how people become good at stuff. And so if you demystify it and you just focus on the things that are obtainable and achievable, and you look
Yeah.
at it from mastery lens, I think it changes the dynamic. And you said earlier, the thing about the serving, right? I remember seeing going through volleyball every year, and the same kids could never serve, and so
Yeah.
they would just get
Yeah.
canceled out, and they have to go through the rotation, and you're like, why does that have to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I went to go and watch a football match in the Premier League. And I remember the players warming up before the game doing 5-yard side foot passes. And I was like, these are Premier League footballers. They're the best of the best. And they're doing 5-yard side foot passes. They're mastering the basics. Right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. If you speak to any coach, what students or what players should be doing as a footballer is standing 2 meters from a wall, passing it with their right foot, passing it with the left foot, passing with the right, passing with the left, and doing that over and over again so you can get a feel of how to play on your right foot, how to play on your left foot. And it's just mastering the basics. And after that Premier League game, I was like, why are we not doing that in school? Why are we expecting the students to be able to do skills that are far more advanced than they are when most elite footballers are doing 5-yard passes? And because of that, that just changed the way I saw it and really wanted to focus on that master curriculum. Yeah, and that's after that, that was a real game changer for me.
I love it. Steve, it was so great to have you on the show. I've been really wanting to put out an episode about PE, so I hope if you're a PE teacher here, you pass this around to other PE teachers and you kind of consider a lot of the things we said today. Like let me try to summarize, like thinking about your curriculum, right? That there's a sequence and there's knowledge in there, and not just that not and it's not just about like doing the performance. There are sort of parts that involve the mind. There's sort of the head, and then there's also these other skills. I love that you wove in there that but instead of them being really woolly, you've sort of like created kind of the assessment criteria for what it means to like take initiative, for example. And then just trying to break down those barriers for students to participate in PE, by taking out some of those things that perhaps stop them from coming in the first place, but also might, point negative attention towards them. It's just a really great way how you've sort of thought about all those things. Otherwise, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, take care.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.